Today, we're going to talk about the power of playlists and soundtracks, music for your work and for your mind. I can't wait to talk with you about it. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Dustin Peed, creative coach and consultant. I'm so happy to be with you. It's November, it's finally here. And right out the gate, I got to tell you, just before recording this episode of the Creativity Made Easy podcast, I found out that my book, Growing Upward, is available all over the place. You can listen to it on Spotify or Nook or all the different places, Everand, which used to be Scribd. You can purchase it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, all these different places it's available now. Just search for my name, Dustin Peed, P-E-A-D, or Growing Upward. I'm slowly putting up some links on my website as well, DustinPeed.com/book for those links. I'm so very excited for y'all to listen to it or read it, however you want to consume it. Super grateful for you to do that. And do me a favor, if you would, leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you're going to listen to it or purchase it on. That's really going to help get the content out further to help other people like yourself who have walked through the journey of mental health. I'm so very thankful to be sharing this book, and that it's out in the wild now is just incredible. Starting to get some feedback from it, and it's really incredible. So thank you all so much for doing that. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, like, ring the bell, all that normal stuff. Not going to get into too many promotions because the book thing is super cool to me right now, and I'm happy to share it and get it out there. I want to remind you, though, that everything I do is to help creatives know themselves, their process, and their teams so that they can create greater things together. Today on the show, we're going to talk about the power of playlists and soundtracks, and this is going to be a little bit of a raw conversation from me, but I'm excited to dive into it with you. And so here's what I mean when I'm talking about the power of playlists and soundtracks. So I'm going to approach this from two different ways. We're going to talk about very literal and physical playlists and soundtracks, like old school playlists, like mixtapes or Spotify, Apple Music playlists, whatever you use now. But we're also going to talk about some of the playlists and soundtracks that we play over and over in our heads as creative professionals. But first, let's get into the practical, right? The power of music and creativity. I do believe that different types of music can enhance and influence your creative process. Music is extremely powerful in our minds. Our minds are wired to have a unique reaction to the power of music. Personally, I believe that is because God created music and God created our brains. And so there's some type of a unique chemical reaction that happens when the two align. There is an incredible book called This Is Your Brain on Music. It's extremely nerdy and scientific, but it is very, very cool. I highly recommend that you check that out. But there are different playlists that you can download or create for yourself. I will say, like, creating playlists is so much fun. It's an easy creative outlet. Most people like music anyway. And so you can just go dig in. It doesn't have to be like, I have to think of every song to add to it. You just go digging through some music, maybe some older music, maybe some new stuff that you've never heard before, or old stuff that you never heard before. And you start going, yeah, this is the vibe that I want to create for this playlist, because playlists are curated content, right? It's not content that you yourselves are going out to create. It's curated content, meaning it already exists and you're kind of gathering it up into a pile for a sole purpose. And that purpose in this instance is to influence your creativity. And so whether you're brainstorming or designing or editing things, it's a really powerful tool to use. Music, that is, whether it's in the form of a playlist or however you have it, a full album that you want to put on as a vinyl. Gosh, we love listening to vinyl in our family. It really transforms the whole attitude of our family and of our home on the evenings when we just sit and listen to records. Man, nothing fuels us. You can see it. Nothing fuels us more creatively than those times these days. And so they're very sweet and precious times. And I would encourage you to do that, whether it's by yourself or with your family or a group of friends. The power of music and creativity is very, very real. So but you can create soundtracks and playlists for different creative modes. You could have a focus mode in which you just need like some ambient or instrumental music to focus on for some detail oriented tasks. Maybe you have a brainstorming mode that you need to come up with a bunch of different ideas. And so you have some upbeat or eclectic tracks to stimulate out of box thinking. Maybe it's a flow state. There's deep immersive soundscapes that you can use to zone out for long hours at a time if you just need to kind of get in that flow state, right? But Spotify, Apple Music, other platforms, they all have pre-curated playlists for creatives, but I would also highly encourage you to create one for yourself. All right, now I want to take a little shift here with this topic of playlists and soundtracks and talk about the mental playlists and soundtracks. These are the stories that we tell ourselves over and over again. And I talked about in my book, I talked about Jon Acuff's books, Your New Playlist and Soundtracks, and how the soundtracks or repetitive thoughts in our minds can shape our actions, right? The things that we tell ourselves over and over again will ultimately shape who we become, right? And if we're out here trying to create our greatest things, and we're out here trying to elevate ourselves, I assume that you're listening to this because you're trying to get better in some area of your life, whether it be creativity or whatever. Like, we're all out here trying to get better. And so the things that we listen to, then we believe about ourselves, will greatly impact how we live our lives. So how are the soundtracks that you're playing in your mind, how are they affecting you? What are you believing about yourself? A friend of mine, Chris Comstock, just gave a powerful message at Crossroads Church here in Douglasville, Georgia, about this very topic. The things that we tell ourselves are the things that hold us back. If you say things like, I'm not good enough, or I can't focus, or this will never work, you know what? That's probably going to happen because you're telling yourself that over and over and over again, that you begin to believe it as truth. And so it's not enough just to remove those negative thoughts, but we have to replace them as well, which brings us to my next point: changing your mental soundtrack. There's some steps I think that you need to take when you're playing a negative soundtrack in your mind, and how to flip that script. I love what Jon Acuff says in his book. He says every thought that enters your mind, if you kind of really kind of analyze it for what it is, you should ask about that thought. Is it helpful? Or sorry, is it true? Is it helpful? And is it kind? And again, I put all this in my book, Growing Upward, as well. But if you can answer yes to all three of those, then it's probably worth hanging on to that thought. But if one of those questions, is it true, helpful, or kind? If you answer no to one of those questions, then it is not worth keeping inside of you. That is a soundtrack that has been broken, or that needs to be broken, and get out of your mind completely. The things that just like the physical music that we listen to, can really steer our creative direction. The mental soundtrack that we create in our heads, and that we accept as truth in our heads, will steer the direction for our creativity. It is 100% worth changing if you notice those broken soundtracks. For me, just to kind of give you a better sense of how I operate. I've talked many times before about morning pages. This is a concept that I learned through a book called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. And it's basically, at some point in the morning, you're going to write down up to 3 pages of longhand with like a pen or Remarkable or something like that, right? That you're not going to type it out or kind of share on a screen time, but you're going to hand write it out, because we know that when we hand write out something, it sticks a little bit more. But what you're doing in that is you're kind of just unloading, your brain dumping a little bit of all the things that are going on in your head. And the reason I practice that so much is I have an opportunity when I do that to look on the page in black and white and discover, is what I'm thinking, is what I'm sitting in my subconscious, is this something that I really need to hang on to? Is this a soundtrack that needs to be replaced? And when I can see it in black and white right in front of me, it's so much more tangible than just like kind of have this cloudy thought or idea that maybe might need to be replaced. It maybe might need a soundtrack that needs to be broken. But when I put it in black and white, I can observe it for what it is, and I can say, yes, that's true, helpful, and kind, or no, it is not true, helpful, and or kind. And so I need to replace it with one that is. And so, for example, you say to yourself, we talked about it a minute ago, I can't focus. Maybe instead you replace that with, I am learning to focus better each and every day. Right? It's still saying, hey, I maybe haven't arrived, but that's where I'm headed. And it's a positive spin on this. And that's a soundtrack that I can live with as we move forward in all of our creative endeavors and just life in general. Right. So you need to, if you identify that soundtrack, you need to break the soundtrack and replace it with ones that can inspire you in the same way that playlist that we talked in the first half of this episode, in the same way that it can inspire you and motivate you towards the truth and towards the things that are bigger and better for you. Even more importantly, the soundtracks in our mind, those are the ones that we really can't turn off, if I'm honest, or if we're all honest with ourselves, we have a trouble turning it off. These are the ones that we're going to have to replace, and we're going to have to focus on that too. So, all right. So work on your own playlist, curate your own, or go find ones that are already created. Identify and replace mental soundtracks that aren't serving you well. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? If the answer is no to one of those or all of those, get it out. Replace it with something that is true, helpful, and kind to yourself and to others. So integrating these both musical and mental soundtracks in your daily creative routine will optimize your flow for best creativity. I can promise you. You get a hold on your environment, you get a hold on what's happening in between your ears, and get ready. You're going to unleash some creativity like you've never seen before. Next week, I'm going to have a guest on the show, and it's been a minute since I've had a guest. Now, this is a return guest, but I'm going to leave it at that. It is going to be a powerful episode next week on Creativity Made Easy. We'll be back with episode 90. I cannot wait to talk to you then.